Hello everybody and welcome back to Retro Gamer Diaries. Okay, so here we go again, 1983. Now that's a year that I keep coming back to as a retro gamer. It's where it really started for me. I was a 13-year-old school kid who was absolutely obsessed on video games, both at home and in the arcades. It was at that time where home computers were booming, and that fella, Sir Clive Sinclair, was just selling bucket loads. I mean bucket loads of those ZX Spectrums. He just couldn't make them fast enough. I played so many games on the ZX Spectrum, but also the Commodore 64, the BBC Micro, the Dragon, Oric, and not to mention the Atari 2600 console. Such exciting and brilliant times. They really were such a buzz of a time. 40 plus years later on, and I'm still a gamer and I'm still a collector. Okay, I do admit I do love my PlayStation 5, but I still love coming back to these old games where it all started. And I have to say, as I get older, I find myself really fascinated with these games, and in particular the backstory of the people and the companies behind these classic games. I mean, some of the programmers back then were just school kids, of which many went on to do some amazing careers. Of course, not all of them were so lucky, that just seemed to have disappeared into the wilderness of time. But nevertheless, I am fascinated in all their stories. I have a massive respect for all of them, these young and brilliant minds. And that's the main reason why my channel, like many other retro gamer channels, is very much committed to rediscovering some of these classics. And I have to say, I have done quite a few of these history videos. I mean, check out my Manic Miner, Horace games with Hunchback, School Days, Scuba Dive, and even Mr. Wimpy. I've also covered many of the classic ZX Spectrum games, including Ant Attack, Ghostbusters, the bloody frustrating Airwolf, Hang On, Afterburner, Death Chase, Jetpack, Jet Set Willy, and many more. I mean, just go and check them out for Christ's sake. I mean, they're okay. And if you're an old timer like me, then I'm pretty sure these videos will bring back some nostalgic childhood memories. Go and check them out, eh? However, today I wanted to take a little break from my beloved ZX Spectrum days and go back to my original roots. Going back to my very first 8-bit home computer, where it all started for me as a game collector. My very first, and that computer is the Oric 1. Yep, that's right, the Oric. Okay, it didn't have the massive popularity or commercial success of the ZX Spectrum. Nowhere near it, but I have to say, it was a big success in France, and at least it had a better keyboard and not these fiddly rubbery buttons. But more importantly, it had some really good games actually, and in particular to a trilogy of games that kept myself and my dad playing for many hours on Christmas Day and the weeks to follow. What were these games? They were Xenon 1, Zorgon's Revenge, and Xenon 3 by IJK Software. Also known as the Oric Xenon Trilogy. Such a brilliant trilogy of games that were only released on the Oric. Gosh, that really does bring back some childhood memories for me, huh? So, who was this IJK Software? Well, they were a British software company founded in 1982 by the 3 members of the Sinclair family, which gave its name. Ian Sinclair, who was the managing director, who originally studied metal chemistry. Then there's Keith Sinclair, who financially helped the project. And then there's Keith's son, who's John S. Sinclair, who is the key programmer of Xenon 1 and Zorgon's Revenge. This fella was born in 1966, and by the age of 16 in 1982, he had learned how to program a computer and became interested in game development. John was still a teenager and had to shuffle between the IJK business and finishing his studies. Talented little fella, this guy. The company's premises was based in Blackpool, Lancashire in the UK. I like Blackpool. The company was also credited for doing 31 games from 1982 to 1987. They were also the first company to offer software for the then very scarce BBC computer. They even beat Acorn Soft by a few weeks. And the first game released was Candy Floss on that BBC Model A, which was later ported to the Oric by Ian. I have to say, I've got that Oric game in my collection too, and I have to say it's okay. They also released games for the Commodore 64, Sinclair Spectrum, Acorn Electron and Amstrad CPC. Let's have a quick look at those games. Now I have to say, these BBC micro games, they all look very similar. Artwork's a little bit boring. Oh, that's definitely an improvement. Much better looking on those BBC games. Here's some of the ZX Spectrum games. Amstrad CPC. And here's the Oric 1 games, much better design. Certainly the best of the bunch. At some point they shifted from video game development to production and distribution with their own duplication company Dupladata. They'd done some work for Ocean, Electronic Arts, Firebirds and others. They successfully transitioned to the floppy format also, but did not have the finance to move the business to CD duplication, so it shut down in 2009. Arguably the most popular game from IJK was Rocket Ball. Looking at the game cover, I think it's based on that film Rollerball. However, for me it was John's Xenon 1 and Zorgon's Revenge that were the two flagship games. With regards to Xenon 3, John didn't actually code anything for that game, but he did provide the graphics, drawings and the suggestion for the Zorgon level. So I wanted to look into those three games. Okay, so the first game on the Zenon series was Xenon 1, which was programmed by the young and talented John Sinclair. It took around 6 months to complete. Now, in an interview, John does mention that the arcade game Phoenix had an influence on the design of the game. And I can see looking at the game that it does actually look like Xenon 1. It's almost a clone. That certainly does look like the mothership from Xenon 1 as well. So let's have a look at Xenon 1. I love this game. The story of the game goes as follows. The planet Radon is under attack by the Zorgon Battlestar. It's now up to the player in the role as a fleet commander in the Zenon Space Academy to travel to it and defend it from the attack. En route, he will have to overpass many enemies and dangers before having a chance on destroying the Zorgon Battlestar. Very exciting. Now, Xenon 1 is at its core a fixed screen shoot 'em up. It consists of 5 levels, each with a different take on the game. In the first level, the player is up against the Arads, bird-like monsters that move in circles above the player. Sometimes they shoot at the player and sometimes they move down and try crashing into it. Now this is the second level, which works similar to the first level, but here the player has to destroy bigger variants of the Arads. These are cloned when hit, with one of the clones diving towards the player and exploding when reaching the baseline. Now in the game there is a limited amount of fuel and you will die if it runs out. To avoid this, the player will need to refuel at the mothership service bay. The third level is without shooting. Here the player moves through a meteor belt and has to get through it without crashing. In the 4th level, the player arrives at the planet Radon. Here, he will be up against patrons, parachuting creatures that jump towards the player from the top. Depending on skill level, there are between 10 to 30 enemies that have to be shot down. And here we are in the 5th level. It is the final battle against the Zorgon Battlestar. To destroy it, the player has to hit its moving nuclear reactor. A bonus level is awarded depending on how long it takes. I also found it quite amusing that Mr. Zorgon was based on Mr. Tickle from the Mr. Men. I like that. I like this game. It's a pretty good Oric game. Sometimes a little difficult at times, but nevertheless a good and well designed game. Spot on, John. Well done. Now we're on to the second game of the Xenon Trilogy. Zorgon's Revenge is the sequel to Xenon 1, and once again it's been programmed by John Sinclair. This is my favourite game on the Oric. It took 9 to 12 months to complete, and John, he was still at school. Now, Zorgon is a different game to Zenon, completely different games. One is a shoot 'em up, while the other is more of a platform game. Anyway, what's the story plot for this game? Well, after their defeat in the previous game, the Zorgons have now kidnapped Roz, the Xenon princess. She has been held in their castle and it's up to the player to rescue her. To do so, he has to search and locate 4 magic stones that can be found in different corners of the Zorgon Empire. They are necessary to build a bridge over the endless chasm that surrounds the castle. The game consists of 4 missions. For each completed mission, the player retrieves one of the magic stones. And what I did like about this game is that the missions can be played in any order and are as follows. The first one I'm going to show you is that Bloomin' Bird level. It's basically a platform level consisting of 3 levels of platforms. The player has to reach the highest point by catching hold of a bird, while at the time avoiding getting hit by the stones that rain from the sky. Apparently the bird was put in because John's dad wanted to do some good animation, and I have to say it is good animation. And from that, John developed a whole level around this bird. They didn't use much code space. I have to say this level is hard and sometimes the most frustrating level. Every time you complete a mission, the player uses a crane to put the magic stones into the right place and thereby bridging the chasm. When all the magic stones have been collected, then you can enter the castle and save the princess. We'll get to that level in a moment. Now we're on to the Quadnog mission. Again, it's a platform level where the creature known as a Quadnog spits venom that the player has to jump over. And when you're close enough, the player has to destroy it by reflecting its white venom. After that, he has to avoid a number of laser beams, retrieve the stone, and then meet another Quadnog before getting the stone. Now we're on to the spider mission. Another platform level where the player first has to catch a rope to get across a pit, then avoid a spider, take a lift and hit a switch to get to the stone. At the same time, a monster is released that the player has to avoid. There is also a flying creature that drops stones on the player. Well designed level. Now for my absolute favourite level of them all, and that's the space mission. This is not a platform level, this is a shoot 'em up level, where the player has to shoot down a number of aliens. You move the player up and down along the left side of the screen while the enemies advance towards him from the right. And after a number of aliens have been shot down, he then has to defeat a freighter to eventually get the magic stone. This spaceship level was certainly influenced by Defender. John recalls the look on the Tansoft guys' faces when he went to visit Oric and showed Zorgon, and the spaceship was just a level in. Tansoft were just launching Defence Force at the time. I have to say that's also a very good game. Another Defender clone, but a very good game nevertheless too. Now that we have all the magic stones, we can now enter the castle for the final level. The player can now enter the castle for the final showdown with Mr. the boss, to save the princess. Bloomin' hard level this one, I can tell you. It took me ages to get here and I got killed so quickly. Very frustrating as I had to go through all the 4 levels again, not to mention that flippin' bird level. Stupid bird. Overall, I think it's a really good game this. It's certainly my favourite game on the Oric. One moment I'm in a spaceship shooting enemies in the style of Defender, and then I'm in a platform trying to catch that bloomin' bird. But I have to say, I really did like this variation. And the fact that I could choose any of the 4 stone levels in any order you wanted also made the game special. Okay, the final stage was slightly harder and I certainly didn't have a lot of lives when I got to this stage, but overall, the game is absolutely brilliant. Another good game from John Sinclair, well done. So here we are with the final game of the Xenon Trilogy, Xenon 3, the Genesis Probe, which was released in 1985. As I previously mentioned, John Sinclair was not involved with this game, with the exception of providing some graphics and drawings. Instead, the game was written by a chap called One. Don't know much about this guy if I'm going to be honest with you. So anyway, what's the plot of this game? Well, following the interplanetary wars between the Zenon and Zorgon battle fleets, the radiation of the planet Radon reached fatal levels and animal life on the planet has almost become extinct. Your mission is to use your new hyperspace engines to visit neighbouring planets in the stellar system, collecting animal species to ensure that the continuation of life on Radon. However, subspace broadcasts have been intercepted, suggesting that the Zorgons are lying in wait for your return. Let's have a look at the game. First, we choose our planet. Then we travel to our chosen planet with our new hyperspace engine. In this level, we have to get our speed bar above the red line by pressing the up button without dropping back, and also by keeping below the red area at the top of the gauge. Also, you need to keep an eye out for these stupid rocks that mess about with your speed. And if you achieve this, then the hyperspeed gauge will start to increase. And once you get that above the red line, then you're off to your planet in hyperspeed, just like Star Trek. Okay, now there's a Zorgon storm ahead. I tell you what, these flipping Mr. Tickles are blooming fast. But wow, look at it, it's in 3D. This was the future. Alright, now we've reached our chosen planet where we have to catch 2 of every species. Here we use the right and left keys to aim and fire key. We also teleport with a maximum of 2 species at one time. Missing 2 red barrels results in a loss of the shield. Let's just have a look at the level. It all makes sense when you look at it. Overall, Xenon 3 is an okay game. I personally think that Xenon 1 and Zorgon's Revenge beat it with better gameplay. However, the graphics, sound and music are pretty okay. It's a pity that John Sinclair was not the man behind this game though, but I think he was just far too busy doing his school exams, and he was perhaps a little bit more involved with the Commodore 64 at this stage too. Never mind, but it's still okay. It's an okay game. So there you go, that was the Xenon Trilogy on the Oric, my favourite Oric games by far. However, just before I go, whatever happened to the IJK guys and that young fella John Sinclair? Well, Keith Sinclair, John's dad, he's retired and he's in his 80s now. And for Ian Sinclair, the managing director, well sadly he died on Saturday the 11th of May 2019. And up until then he was running Tech Point Services. And John, what happened to this young programmer? Well, John, he went on from IJK to Manchester University. John also started a company that made an adapter for people with disabilities to use computer mouse and keyboard by blinking head movement. Clever. It was sold to IBM and lots of big companies. Eventually it became a big business and floated on the London AIM market, which is London's alternative investment market. He eventually almost made a laptop computer that eventually could control the whole house by radio and infrared. Wow. John then co-founded Lightwave RF. That was formed to make home control a retail thing. John was CTO there for 6 years. John also made the first smart home hub to be sold in retail stores, B&Q amongst others. Lightwave is still a company and it's still going, selling in Apple stores now all over Europe. John is currently the CEO of Notif AI, founded in Santa Monica, along with an ARM chip company and the guy that founded Macromedia. John currently lives in China. Wow, I'm impressed. What a clever guy. I mean, John started out as a young programmer in his bedroom while still at school, and then he went on to become an inventor of a smart home hub, and then went on to become a CEO of a big company. And finally, let's not forget to mention that he was helping people with disabilities. Top bloke, top bloke. Okay folks, that's a wrap. Thank you for watching my video. Just before I go, I would like to take the time to thank the people at Oric One and Atmos Owners Users, a Facebook group, for sharing some information on John Sinclair, and particularly for pointing me in the right direction with a 2019 interview with John in the Club Europe Oric magazine. Thank you Simon Guyart, I hope I've said your name right. And also a thank you for Steve Marshall for providing a 1983 news article from the Home Computing Weekly. Spot on. All of this helped my video. Go and check out that Oric Facebook page too if you're into Oric. It's good. So all it remains for me to say is, I hope you liked my video. Go and press that like button. Now remember that this video is just for fun, for Christ's sake, but if you must correct me with something, then that's okay too, nerd. However, it would be spot on if you press that subscribe button, and if you do, well thank you. Until the next time, have a great day, and I'll speak to you all very soon again with my next video. Bye bye.